Hi everyone! Welcome to the Jada and Stitches show. This little pumpkin makes the cutest keychain or even a cat toy. We made one recently during a live stream and we thought we'd recap it for you today in a quick fix tutorial. In order to make our little pumpkin keychain or pet toy, you're going to want around 12 yards of a size 4 medium weight orange yarn and a couple yards of a size 4 medium weight green yarn. You can use any fiber you like. If you're turning it into a keychain, you're also going to need a little split chain, a split key ring, and possibly a little jump ring to attach it, or you can use one of these little ball chains, whatever kind of keychain attachment that you like. If you're making it for a pet toy, you might want to consider a little bell or a noisemaker for the inside, possibly some catnip, and you definitely want stuffing, whether you're making it as a keychain or a toy. You want a pair of scissors, a yarn needle, and the hook we're using is a 4.5 millimeter, also known as a 7. And once you've got all that together, we can get started. To begin, we're going to start with orange and make a slip knot. We're going to chain 7. We're going to skip the first chain from the hook and single crochet into the next chain. And we're going to single crochet into each chain all the way back. At the end of row 1, we'll have 6 single crochets. We're using the single crochet stitch exclusively through this little pattern. Chain 1 and turn at the end of every single row. For row 2 and onward, we are using the back loops only as we single crochet. The back loop of a stitch is always the loop furthest away from you. You always skip the turning chain. Single crochet into the back loop only. You pick the back loop of the stitch up on your hook and single crochet as normal. You will still have 6 stitches at the end of row 2, chain 1 turn, and back loops single crochet into each stitch across. Remember, you're always skipping that chain 1 that you turned with. Back loops single crochet in every single stitch all the way across, and you're going to chain 1 turn at the end of every row and work back loops only single crochet for 14 rows in total. That's the end of row 3. I'll see you at the end of row 14. At the end of row 14, you should still have 6 stitches and a nice little ribbed piece of fabric that looks like this. Chain 1 if you haven't already, and bring the other short end up to meet row 14. We're going to continue to skip that turning chain. We're not actually turning this time, but we are going to use the back loops only of row 14 and the foundation chains from our foundation chain row, and you're going to slip stitch through each set of stitches all the way across to create a seam. So no sewing required at this part. We're just going to slip stitch that seam together. You'll have 6 slip stitched pairs when you get to the end of this little row. There we go. And you can cut yourself a tail about 15 centimeters or 6 inches long, or a little longer if you prefer. Fasten off, and we're going to use this tail to cinch up the bottom of our pumpkin. So you're going to grab your yarn needle, thread up that tail, and you're going to weave the tail in and out through loops at the edge of all of the rows along the bottom edge of the pumpkin. And I've just taken that little tail and stuffed it into the middle because you don't really need to weave in any tails in this project. Everything just kind of gets stuffed to the inside. So I'm just grabbing edge loops, weaving that tail in and out, back and forth through them. And we're going to use this to cinch up the bottom of our pumpkin. Now that should pretty much close in that little hole, but if it doesn't all the way, you can take your needle and run that tail through a few of the loops around the opening again, just to make sure that all of that little space disappears, because you don't want any of your stuffing leaking out. If you're putting in catnip, you don't really want that falling out, and you certainly don't want any little noisemaker or bell, if you're adding one, to come out either. Then you can push your needle all the way through to the middle, or the inside of your pumpkin. I like to take both of those little short ends and tie them together. I knot it once, I knot it twice, I may even knot it 3 times if I feel it needs it. There we go. And those tails can just stay in the middle. So we've got the bottom of our little pumpkin all cinched up. The sides are done. Now all we're going to do is add a little stuffing. This is the opportunity for the little noisemaker. If you're adding a little bell or something, if it's for a toy, you can add a little bit of catnip or something if you want to do that as well. I'm just turning this into a little keychain, so I'm just using up a tiny bit of some leftover yarn that I've got. And I don't want to overstuff it. I would put in a little bit of stuffing, then the yarn, or the little sound maker, like the bell, or a little bit of catnip in the center, wrapped up in the stuffing if you're going to do that. Otherwise, just add as much stuffing or little leftover bits of yarn as you see fit. It doesn't have to be super stiff. I probably have too much yarn here. I might cut a little bit of this. There we go. Just enough to kind of give it a bit of shape. And then we're going to add the green yarn to create the stem and cinch in the top. But we're going to do that with crochet. Now we take our green yarn, we start with a slip knot on our hook, and we're going to work 2 single crochet together all the way around the edge of our pumpkin. And it's not difficult. All you're going to do is just slip your hook in underneath a loop or a stitch edge along a row edge at the top, pick up a loop, and then into the next natural place right next to it, pick up another loop. I'm going to try and keep my stuffing out of the way. You'll have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull back through everything. You can take that little tail and stuff it into the middle. And now we repeat. Slip your hook in underneath the row edge next to this stitch here, pick up a loop. Do the same thing at the edge next to that, pick up a loop. Doesn't matter if you're grabbing loops, row edges around the stitch, single crochet 2 together. Looks like this again. Pick up a loop, pick up another loop. You're just sticking your hook through the edge of a row as close to the edge as you can get. Pick up 2 loops, 1 for each row edge, and then single crochet. So you're single crocheting 2 together. Because we had 14 rows, we will eventually have 7 single crochet 2 together stitches all the way around. But if you've got 8 or 6, it doesn't matter. This is a pumpkin. Pumpkins are kind of an organic little shape, so the stitch count here doesn't matter. All that's really important is that we're cinching in the top of our little pumpkin shape together. And once you get all the way around, you'll see it starting to close in. If you've got spaces between your stitches, don't worry about it. We're going to clean that up at the end as well. No joining of rows. You're just going to pick up a loop in that first single crochet 2 stitches together that you made, and you're going to continue to single crochet 2 together by picking up a loop in each of the next 2 stitches and single crocheting. And again, You're going to do this about 4 times. You'll have about 4 stitches, 3 or 4, 4 or 5 stitches left. Again, actual stitch count doesn't matter. We're just narrowing the top of our little pumpkin. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to do this once more. Alright, so that makes it pretty narrow, but you can see that we've completely narrowed it in now. And now for a couple of rows, I'm just going to single crochet in each of those stitches all the way around. So it's very small. I like to try and identify the next stitch, get my hook underneath it, and make sure I'm not single crocheting into 2 stitches. And I'm going to do this until I have a little stem that's, I don't know, 1 row, 2 rows high. It doesn't really matter. If you've got slightly looser stitches than me, you may only want to do 1 row. I think that's enough. Once you get a stem that's tall enough, you can single crochet through 2 stitches. This just sort of finishes it off, gives it a little bit of a point at the top. And then, again, cut yourself a longish tail, 15 centimeters, 6 inches, or a little longer if you like. Fasten off, grab your yarn needle. And if you've got little bits of gaping holes kind of running around the side of your stem area where you were single crocheting 2 stitches together, we're just going to make a neat little finish to that. So we're going to thread up our yarn, bring it down through some of the loops of these stitches to about the area where those little gaps start, and then you're going to run your needle through those stitches and just gently cinch as you go. It will create a little bit of shaping for the top of your pumpkin. I want to keep that little I'm going to keep my little stem look going, but I am going to just close in some of those little spaces. And we're doing this for a couple reasons. 1, it's a nice way to shape the pumpkin. 2, it keeps the stuffing inside the pumpkin, whatever you've stuffed your pumpkin with. And 3, it's nice to not see the stuffing, so you don't really want to have little spaces showing. It just makes for a tidier, neater little pumpkin. And you can do this for as many stitches as you think you need to until you feel like you've got a nice closed-in top to your little pumpkin. And I think that's fine. I'm just going to make a little tiny knot here next to my last little cinching stitch. Nothing fancy. And I'm going to pull my needle down through the body of my pumpkin, pull the yarn out the other side, and then I'm going to just wiggle my needle back and forth inside the pumpkin, and I'm trying to grab that little tail and just pull it into the body of the pumpkin. And I will wiggle my little needle back and forth until the whole thing disappears. And it just becomes part of the stuffing. In order to turn your little pumpkin into a keychain, you've got a few options. If you're using a split ring like this one, you might find it helpful to add a little jump ring to the edge of your pumpkin first. You can just sort of pull apart the 2 ends of this jump ring like so, and then very carefully slip it under the top of one of the loops of your pumpkin, close the jump ring back up. You're going to want little pliers for that, and then you can slip it onto your split ring. You can also use a ball chain like I've got here, and I find the easiest way to put a ball chain in is to use the yarn needle with a larger eye and just grab that first little ball of the chain and just pull it through that first loop of thread, or through that first loop of yarn, and then you can take your needle off and just slowly pull that little ball chain through, and then you've got a little keychain Easy peasy. And it looks super cute hanging off your bag, or your purse, or even from the rearview mirror of your car. We hope you enjoyed making this sweet little pumpkin keychain or cat toy, and we'll see you again soon here on the Jada and Stitches Show. Until then, stay safe, stay crafty, and have a great week. Bye guys!
Hi everybody! Mr. and Stitches here. Thank you for watching today. Here are some of our other videos you might be interested in. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe.